Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Newsline at Noon, President Park Geun-hye and political leaders have failed to reach a compromise on a range of thorny issues that have paralysed Parliament for weeks. The opposition vows to press ahead with its month-long street protest. After reopening their jointly run Kaesong Industrial Complex, South and North Korea agreed to seek ways to attract foreign investors to the factory zone. Plus, details are emerging about the gunman the FBI has identified as a suspect in the mass shooting at the Washington Navy Yard. The main suspect was shot dead, but authorities are still searching for a second man. These stories and more on Newsline at Noon.
Where's the best place for bibimbap?
Les Jeux Olympiques d'hiver se dérouleront-ils à Pyeongchang?
هل أنتم حقاً سابع أكبر مصدر في العالم؟
この歌手は誰ですか？你好，最近哪部电视剧的人气最旺？
Korea is attracting interest from around the world. The more you know, the more you want to know. Dynamic Korea.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at Noon. I'm Choi Yuson in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. We start with latest efforts to resolve the prolonged political impasse at the National Assembly. President Park Geun-hye met with leaders of the two main political parties on Monday with hopes of walking away with a solution.
But she and the opposition Democratic Party failed to reach agreement on a range of issues, including ways to reform the nation's spy agency. Our political correspondent Kim Hyun-ji reports.
After the landmark talks with President Park Monday afternoon, the ruling and the main opposition parties had very different perspectives about the meeting.
President Park talked with sincerity about the topics the main opposition party brought to the table, so I expect a positive outcome.
I did tell the president everything. A lot was exchanged between us, but there were no correct answers. Not even one.
According to the ruling Saenuri Party's chief secretary, Democratic Party leader Kim Han-gil proposed tough reforms of the nation's spy agency led by the National Assembly. But President Park said the National Intelligence Service is in the process of drawing up rigorous plans for its own reforms, and that lawmakers can make changes once this plan is filed at the National Assembly. President Park and the ruling party were also lukewarm about the opposition party's proposal to form a special parliamentary committee to reform the spy agency, because doing so would override the function of the Parliament's Intelligence Committee. At the talks, Democratic Party leader Kim Han-gil asked President Park to offer a public apology for the spy agency's interference in last year's presidential election. But she rejected the suggestion, saying that the scandal began and ended during the Lee Myung-bak administration. Regarding Prosecutor General Choi Dong-uk's sudden resignation last Friday, President Park rejected the notion that the presidential office pulled strings to take him down. The unsatisfied Democratic Party says it will continue its street protest campaign, which has been going on for more than a month now. Vast bipartisan differences over the spy agency scandal have paralyzed parliamentary business for weeks, putting on the back burner urgent issues like next year's budget. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
Earlier today, President Park slammed the opposition Democratic Party for its decision to continue with its street protest. During a cabinet meeting, the president said that if the DP insists on carrying on with its street campaign, it will eventually alienate itself from the public. The president urged the DP to come back to Parliament and discuss pending issues with the ruling Saenuri Party. She also stressed that if the DP continues to refuse to take part in the Parliament's regular session and review the bills that have been proposed for the people's livelihoods, the party will be going against its pledge of wanting politics for the people. The National Intelligence Service raided the homes of 5 left-wing political activists on charges of conspiracy to topple the government and of violating the country's national security law. Officials say from early Tuesday morning, NIS agents stormed the residences and offices of activists, including Hong Sung-gyu, the spokesperson of minor left-wing Unified Progressive Party, on suspicions they have links to the so-called revolutionary organization. Members of RO were allegedly plotting to sabotage the South Korean government and U.S. troops in the event of an inter-Korean war. Meanwhile, UPP lawmaker Lee Seok-gi, who is detained on same charges, is reportedly still exercising his right to remain silent despite questioning by the prosecution. After months of deadlock, the inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex reopened for business on Monday. South Korean business owners made the short trip again this Tuesday to oversee their second day of production, and as our Kim Hyun-bin reports, most are reporting that things have changed for the better.
Over 300 South Korean personnel streamed across the border to work on Tuesday to start their second day back at the Kaesong Industrial Complex. South Korea's Unification Ministry says that out of the 123 South Korean firms with facilities at Kaesong, 90 returned to work on Monday, and over 32,000 North Korean workers returned to their positions. The North Koreans seem pleased to be back at work.
Since the North Koreans were unemployed over the last few months, there seems to be an extra desire to work hard. But apart from that, the atmosphere doesn't seem that different from last time.
Most importantly, there has been a change in attitude from the North. I believe the complex will become the backbone for enhancing inter-Korean economic cooperation in the future.
Finishing last-minute preparations on Monday morning, companies fired up their machines in the afternoon. The South Korean workers noticed some of the positive changes that have been implemented to make their lives a little more convenient. South Korean personnel are now able to go in and out of the factory park up to 21 times a day. Before, they only had limited access at a designated time. In addition to the reopening, the two Koreas held their third joint committee meeting Monday, where they agreed to hold on an investors' relations fair on October 31st at the factory park. They'll attempt to attract foreign investment and develop the complex into a globally competitive production hub. Other issues that were discussed included the implementation of a radio frequency identification system to speed up vehicle passes across the border, as well as measures to better ensure the safety of South Korean workers at Kaesong. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Korea is set to announce next week the winner of a multi-billion-dollar contract to supply 60 fighter jets to the Air Force. The Defense Acquisition Program Administration says it will announce its decision next Tuesday after a final assessment. Boeing's F-15 Silent Eagle is the sole candidate after the other two leading candidates, the EADS Eurofighter Tranche 3 Typhoon and Lockheed Martin's F-35, were removed because they would have exceeded the budget of 8.3 trillion won or $7.7 billion US. The Korean government will provide $4.9 billion US in additional financial support to spur corporate investment in facilities. Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok said in a meeting with policymakers on Tuesday that the support will be provided through state-run banks. That's in addition to the $30.2 billion already allocated to facilities investment by state policy financing agencies. For small and mid-sized enterprises, the government will also ease regulations related to tariffs and asset depreciation rates. Hyun also says the government will unveil a third set of measures over the next couple of weeks aimed at stimulating corporate investment as a whole. Samsung's highly anticipated smartwatch, the Galaxy Gear, could become obsolete just a few months after its release, as the Korean firm is supposedly already prepping the Galaxy Gear 2 smartwatch for launch early next year. A report by Korean news portal Daum says the second iteration could be unveiled as early as January. The Galaxy Gear came out to a lukewarm response earlier this month due to the high price, short battery life, and the device's inability to pair with a wide range of Android devices. Samsung have said they plan to expand this functionality to include other devices in later models. The report says Samsung considers the Galaxy Gear to be a kind of test product to determine the market reaction ahead of the release of an upgraded version.
For your fill of Korean and international news. Join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at Noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
More than a dozen people were killed after a gunman opened fire at a U.S. Navy installation in Washington, D.C. on Monday. U.S. President Barack Obama has called the shooting a cowardly act and said whoever carried out the rampage will be held responsible. Kim Min-ji has more.
At least 13 people have been killed and 4 injured in a shooting rampage Monday morning at a U.S. naval office located just a few miles from the White House and the Capitol. The shootings took place around 8:20 a.m. local time at the Washington Navy Yard located in the southeastern part of the city. According to an eyewitness, the gunman dressed in military-style uniform opened fire on staff inside the building.
And as he came around the corner, he aimed his gun at us and he fired at least 2 or 3 shots. And we ran down the stairs to get out of the building.
U.S. authorities have also confirmed the death of gunman Aaron Alexis, a former sailor discharged from service for misconduct. The authorities are currently searching for 2 other potential shooters.
The big concern for us right now is that we potentially have 2 other shooters that we have not located at this point.
The police noted that the 2 suspects were also dressed in military-style uniforms and advised area residents to stay at home. The rampage took place less than 4 miles from the White House and 2 miles from the Capitol. The Pentagon and other public buildings have strengthened security while departures were suspended at Reagan National Airport. Workers at the Navy installation have also been ordered to evacuate, and nearby schools have been closed temporarily. Meanwhile, U.S. President Barack Obama offered his condolences to the victims and called the shootings a cowardly act.
As investigation moves forward, we will do everything in our power to make sure whoever carried out this cowardly act is held responsible.
The motive for the attack is not yet known, but so far officials say there is no indication it was an act of terrorism. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
A UN inspector's report into the Damascus chemical weapons attack last month says there is clear and convincing evidence that chemical agent sarin was used. Though the report doesn't attribute blame, Western governments who are adamant the Assad regime was responsible are expected to file for a UN resolution to get Syria to hand over its chemical weapons stockpile under a set deadline. Yurian reports.
The highly anticipated UN inspector's report has confirmed what Western governments had suspected all along, that the nerve agent sarin was used in last month's chemical attack near Damascus.
Chemical weapons were used on a relatively large scale in the Ghouta area of Damascus on August 21st, causing numerous casualties, particularly among civilians.
The report added the weather conditions on that day ensured as many people as possible would be affected. It says temperatures were falling between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., which meant that air was falling down, allowing heavy gas to penetrate into lower levels of buildings where many were seeking shelter. The report doesn't say who was responsible for the attack, but Western governments refuse to believe it was anyone other than the Syrian government.
We've always believed, as you know, that this was the work, this was the responsibility of the Assad regime, and everything we can see in this report is fully consistent with that.
And it's very important to note that the regime possesses sarin, and we have no evidence that the opposition possesses sarin.
Earlier on Monday, France, Britain, and the United States agreed to seek a strong and robust UN resolution by the end of the week that binds Syria to remove its chemical weapons under a set deadline. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry told a news conference in Paris that the three powers agreed with Russia that President Assad will suffer consequences if he fails to comply with UN demands. Russia, which struck the deal with the United States, cautioned against imposing tough penalties, adding such threats could wreck attempts for a diplomatic solution to the crisis. Yurian, Arirang News.
U.S. President Barack Obama has told Republicans in Congress that he will not budge over an extension of the U.S. debt ceiling, with the deadline approaching to reach a deal fast approaching. In a speech Monday making 5 years since the onset of the global financial crisis, President Obama said it was time for the Republicans to stop making threats and trying to attach conditions to funding the budget for the 2014 fiscal year that begins October 1st. The fight between Obama and the Republicans looks set to become a replay of the 2011 budget showdown that narrowly avoided what would have been a historic default on the U.S. debt. As with last time, if the cap is not raised over the next few weeks, the U.S. will not be able to pay all of its bills and will go into default.
A powerful typhoon that swept through Japan Monday caused radioactive water from the stricken Fukushima nuclear plant to drain into the ocean. Japanese authorities say more than 100 millimeters of rain was measured in some parts of the crippled plant Monday afternoon as Typhoon Mani moved its way north. The deluge that accumulated within the concrete walls surrounding the tanks at the plant, combined with contaminated water there, and was drained out by authorities. But the amount of water was not known. Although plant operator TEPCO said radioactive level of the drained water was a maximum of 24 becquerels per litre, below the legal limit of 30 becquerels per litre, some Japanese media outlets questioned whether the operator measured the level just before leaking the water. Typhoon Mani left at least 8 people dead or missing and more than 100 injured. A Korean shipping company has launched a pilot service on a new Arctic route connecting Asia with Europe, becoming the first company to use a North Pole route. Our Son Jong-in reports.
The Swedish icebreaker Stena Polaris set sail from the port of Utsluga on the Gulf of Finland in western Russia on Sunday, carrying Korean cargo for Hyundai Glovis. The company is making use of a new Arctic Ocean route, becoming the first Korean shipper to send cargo through the North Pole. The ship is carrying 4,000 tons of naphtha to Korea. Using the Arctic route can cut the travel distance from Korea to northern European countries by 7,000 kilometers and the duration of the journey by about 10 days compared to the time it takes using the conventional shipping route through the Indian Ocean and the Suez Canal.
If we increase the number of operations using the North Pole route and expand our various Arctic development projects, we feel this could bring about a commercial breakthrough in the near future.
The nation's shipping business has high expectations for the new route, which could help reduce contribution costs.
We pushed ahead with this new route to strengthen our global marine competitiveness and Korea's vitalization of North Pole business.
The Stena Polaris is scheduled to arrive back at Korea's Gwangyang port in mid-October. Son Jong-in, Arirang News.
Traditional markets in Korea have been undergoing a modern transformation in recent years as an effort to sway consumers back to these time-honored businesses. In order to help out these local community markets, some of Korea's biggest companies are offering a helping hand to spur sales ahead of the Chuseok holiday. Our Paul Lee reports.
Here in the city of Ulsan, some of Hyundai Motor's top CEOs and union leaders have decided to put aside their differences and come together in support of local traditional markets. The management and labor representatives explore the market, greeting merchants and inquiring about the fresh goods. Both parties hope their efforts will boost sales and stimulate the local economy.
There are a lot of high expectations among traditional market merchants. With more people shopping at traditional markets, I hope we can together create a better society for everyone.
The tour is part of Hyundai Motor's recent contribution towards traditional markets, along with the purchase of some $15.7 million worth of gift certificates. The market vouchers are only redeemable at traditional markets and have been distributed among company employees ahead of the Chuseok holiday.
Employees and their families will be able to purchase a lot of goods, so it will revitalize the market. I hope it will also act as an opportunity for regional development.
It's a growing trend among Korea's biggest conglomerates, from Samsung to POSCO, as it contributes to their corporate welfare programs while providing seasonal gifts for their employees.
Since receiving the gift certificates from the company and then coming down here, I found that the products are cheap and the quality is good. I think a lot of parents would really like this.
Small and medium-sized business associations have been investing in the gift certificate program for years to revitalize traditional markets in Korea. And now with this boost from the private sector, their efforts are finally paying off. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Well, Yusun, I think it's the nicest time of year
Oh,
to
yes,
take
certainly.
a look around the city of Seoul, particularly if you can get up to the high spots, like
Mhm.
the 63 building there. I'm pretty sure that was shown, and Namsan Mountain, of
Right.
course. Very good spots to check out the city on really beautiful weather at the moment. My favourite time of the year, fall. And we're going to get a check on the weather now with our Lee Ji-yeon, who's standing by at our very flowery weather centre there. Good afternoon to you, Ji-yeon.
Good afternoon, guys. Well, the Chuseok holiday is only 2 days away, and people are expected to start driving back to their hometown as early as this afternoon.
Right, which means less and less cars here in the city and
Right.
more and more cars on highways and other roads down to other cities in the country. But I don't know about you, Mark, but you know, when I spend a lot of time in the car, I often get car sick.
Yeah, I don't get car sick if I'm driving, but if I'm sat in the back seat, I do some of the time. And the traffic is really bad over the Chuseok holiday, and you know, you're sat there on the highway in really bad traffic, the sun's shining down on you, you had a very early start.
Right.
You know, it's not ideal conditions, is it really, at all, Ji-yeon? What about you? Do you sometimes feel drowsy, like you're going to fall asleep when you're driving?
Every time.
dangerous.
So I put together a couple of tips for you guys. But first of all, did you know that 1 in 7 car accident is caused by sleepy drivers? Well, none of us want to be that person. So here are a couple of things that we can do. First, if you're taking cold medicine or allergy pills, skip 1 or 2 of your regular doses before your departure. And if you feel drowsy while driving, pull off the road and give yourself some time. Take a nap for about 20 minutes. It will definitely help you. Now, please keep this in mind and hope you have a safe trip to your hometown. Weather-wise, we'll have another gorgeous day today. Nothing but sunshine is in the forecast across the peninsula throughout the day. Well, thanks to the high pressure system from the west, which has been bringing a nice clear weather to our nations. Well, it looks like we're going to have a similar weather conditions tomorrow as well. Plenty of sunshine and pleasant conditions are on tap for Wednesday, and afternoon highs will get into the upper 20s to low 30s across the nation. Well, today's daytime highs will be slightly higher than yesterday, so let's take a look at those numbers. The capital will get up to 29 degrees Celsius, that's 84 degrees in Fahrenheit, and afternoon highs in Daegu, Gwangju, and Busan will all climb up to 30 with a good amount of sunshine. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju, Daejeon, and Dokdo will get up into the mid to high 20s, while Mount Kumgang stays cooler at 18. Now that wraps up the weather forecast for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. Well, temperature difference can be as wide as over 10 degrees during the morning and the afternoon, so take good care of yourself. Well, that's all for me today. Enjoy your lunch break and hope you have a great rest of the day. Now back to Mark and Yusun in the studio.
Well, thank you ever so much as always, Jian, for your wonderful weather report there. And that's it for now. Those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Well, Mark and I will be back tomorrow for up-to-the-minute news coverage right here on Newsline at Noon.